Animal shelters in South Florida are over capacity.
MiamiDade Animal Services is battling with pet overpopulation in the midst of a heat wave.
MiamiDade's Animal Services shelter is facing an emergency.
Going down, Miami-Dade Animal Services facing an overpopulation crisis. Shelter staff saying they're getting more animals in than they can hold.
Animal shelters across South Florida are facing a crisis. Dogs and cats in Miami-Dade County are overflowing shelters.
So Miami-Dade County Animal Services is an open admittance shelter. That means that we take in animals from all over the county, our very large county, all the way from the northern border to almost the Keys. So it's a population of 3 million, and we have a lot of dogs that are coming in through either through our enforcement team that picks them up on the street or just here at the shelter drop-offs because they're injured or sick and they need our assistance.
Miami-Dade Animal Services is facing overcrowded shelters in Doral and Medley since the pandemic. The circumstances are so severe, putting at risk the condition of all the animals.
And this is something that is not only happening in Miami-Dade. After COVID, a lot of shelters, most of the shelters in the country are experiencing overpopulation. So when we have overpopulation, we are not able to provide the same ratio of staff per animal. And so that is also a little bit more challenging. So it's more challenging to clean them in time. It's more challenging to walk. You know, it's different to walk 50 dogs than to walk 800 dogs, you know. And disease. So when there is overpopulation, there will be respiratory disease. So when we have animals confined in a small area, respiratory bugs just are more common. And so because also they get a little bit more stressed by having more animals in their proximity, then their immune system drops. And so that's something that really affects how much how much care we can provide. We have one veterinarian in the clinic for about 500 dogs. And then we have 2 surgeons that are doing high volume spay neuter on a given day. So it does become very complicated. The more animals we have, the more difficult it is to see them all in a timely manner, absolutely.
According to Miami-Dade Animal Services, overpopulation is rampant in shelters, holding over 650 dogs and over 100 cats. The University of Florida found that animal intake in the state increased by 13% from 2020 to 2023. And last year alone, more than 350,000 animals were brought into shelters. These drastic numbers have led Miami-Dade Animal Services to a temporary halt in their public animal intake as they run out of space.
The Medley facility is an open-air facility. That was the old shelter. And we've continued to use that throughout the time that the Doral facility was open, but it was only being used to quarantine animals that were going to another state or that were sick. Now we're having to use it as a shelter. And currently we have about 140 dogs living at the Medley facility.
Veterinarians like Dr. Maria Serrano are doing everything they can to give the animals the care that they deserve.
So we prioritize animals as they have more needs. And so animals that are injured or in pain, at least in the veterinary department. So animals that are injured or animals that have any painful process, we definitely want to address those first. All animals in our care get fed twice a day. We also try to take care of their behavioral well-being. So we have an enrichment department that tries to keep them engaged mentally, because that is a huge component of medical care. We love for our volunteers and for our community to come and get them out for a walk, get them out for the beach, get them out just out of the walls of the shelter, because that is part of making them mentally healthy, and that's also important to get them a great home.
As the summer heat continues, Serrano says that dogs are kept cool in air-conditioned facilities in Doral and by industrialized fans in Medley. For flooding, the process looks different.
Medley and Doral, unfortunately, don't do well with flooding. We are in high flood areas here. Our Doral shelter gets flooded in the parking lot, but the dogs remain completely safe, completely dry. At Medley, the same happens, where the inside, they are dry and it doesn't flood, but some of the kennels that are closer to the parking lot and outside, the outside perimeter, those sometimes do get water. So what we do is we move the dogs into the facility. We do have plans where if a tropical storm is coming or a hurricane is coming, we will evacuate Medley and bring the dogs either to Doral if we don't have one of the evacuation centers open, or we'll move them all to an evacuation center. But we have a plan, it's very well detailed. We've had to share that with the rest of the county so everybody knows what the plan is in case of an emergency. And we want to assure everyone that the dogs will remain safe during any kind of storm.
Miami-Dade Animal Services has a $39 million budget. 60% is used to pay employees working extra to curb the overpopulation crisis. The other 40% goes to medical and pet supplies. Employees making a desperate call for people to adopt a furry friend turn to social media with photos and videos like these to raise awareness about the growing problem. Sage now has a forever home thanks to Amari Jenkins and the shelter as it works to find a home for every animal.
So what made me adopt a pet is for emotional support. Sometimes when I am alone and I get bored, I get into my mind sometimes, and having Sage there just keeps me occupied. I knew I had to pay $50 so I can get him neutered in the future, and they give me my reimbursement once he does get neutered. And it was quite easy. They gave me a folder with all his information and everything. Went through the rooms and saw him and decided that I wanted to keep him. It was a really fast process.
Christian Carnizares adopted Buttercup, a Chihuahua Wiener mix, in 2010.
Decided to adopt Buttercup because I was looking for a smaller dog that wouldn't be high maintenance, that you have to take on long walks every day. And also I get very allergic to dog hair, so she being a smaller dog that doesn't have a whole bunch of hair, I thought she was a better option. And when we walked into the area where she had been super shy and timid all day, like she just tucked away in a corner, like not really acknowledging everybody. But when my family and I walked in, she like acknowledged us, came out of the corner, and for the first time all day, she started wagging her tail, and it just felt like she was the one for us.
Christian and Buttercup now play together and are happy they found each other. Newton, a mix between a pointer and a pit bull, also found a happy home and a best friend with Jacob Jones and his family.
My pet's name is Newton, and originally me and my family decided that we wanted to adopt because there's tons of animals that need homes, and we've always believed that animals need love and support. So we went and we fell in love with little Newton, and we learned a lot of things about him, like he had parvo. But we just felt compelled to save this beautiful little dog, and we got him, and he's been with us for 15 beautiful years.
However, Newton had to overcome an illness during his stay at the shelter that almost killed him.
We adopted him when he was about 4 months old, which is very young, especially when a puppy has parvo. Most puppies, when they go untreated, will die of parvo. It's one of the most deadliest diseases when it comes to small animals. So we got him when he just was overcoming it. We had to give him like the last couple of weeks of medication. And it was a struggle because we also had a dog that died of parvo 3 months before we bought him. And one of the things I tell you with parvo is if one animal has it, you can't rehome in the same home. But we bleached our entire house multiple times because we were committed to getting another rescue animal. And it was a struggle, but he's here today, 15 years strong.
Adopting an animal is beneficial to both the pet and future owner, and most importantly, helps alleviate the overcapacity of shelters.
Our main goal is to get dogs out of the shelter. We don't believe that dogs or cats belong in a shelter, they belong in a home. So any way we can get them out of the shelter, we're gonna make that happen. So adoption is our main goal.
The shelters are a great place to save animals' lives, but they're not a great place for an animal to live. And they're so stressed by hearing the other, sometimes 100 other animals, that they themselves get extremely anxious, they get depressed, just like human beings. So when they're finally rehomed, they finally feel like they can put their guard down and they feel that love and they show you their true personality, and it makes all the difference.
In order to stop overpopulation in shelters, it's important for the community to help too.
The most important thing the community can do is spay and neuter their pets. That is the number one thing that we're asking everyone to do, because responsible pet ownership means that you're going to help us control this population crisis. So it's a cultural shift that needs to happen, where we need to have most of the dogs that live in our community spayed or neutered, so that the future doesn't look like it looks right now. It's not just what you're seeing in the shelter, but what you're seeing out in the Redlands and Homestead. Dogs that are just wandering the street, having puppies in the street, and it's really not a good quality of life for them.
Opening a heart and home to a shelter animal gives them a second chance at a happy life. Visit a shelter or go to an adoption event to help reduce overcrowding. And help out shelters by donating food, supplies, or volunteering.